gosh, uneducated, uninformed comments about my piece, or about me personally. She wasn't even talking about the piece. I've just got to believe, Alec, that if I was sitting right next to her, that her tune would have been a lot different. But if she's such an expert on me, first of all, and on the event, secondly, I would welcome her to an open debate. Just pick the time and the place, and I'll be there early. And she better pack a lunch because it's going to take some time.
Charlie, specifically, I was talking to you during the break. You want to issue the challenge. Go ahead.
Let's do it. I issue the challenge to debate Meghan McCain, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly. Bring them all. Bob McElvain and I will join you on Larry King Live. And you guys bring whatever you got. Bring popular mechanics. Let's call them out as well. And we'll show up with the truth, and we'll just see how it goes. We're not hiding. We're not hiding.
In America, we are fed propaganda, and if you want to know what's happening in the world, go outside of the U.S. media, because it's owned by 4 corporations. One of them is this one. And you know what? Go outside of the country to find out what's going on in our own country, because it's frightening. It's frightening.
I come to you today representing the families of the victims of September 11th, as well as millions of my fellow Americans. We have questions, Mr. President. Lots of questions.
Now, is Charlie Sheen ranting like a lunatic about the September 11th attack?
Charlie's one of those charming guys, like Rosie O'Donnell, who holds similar views. I think that they have swallowed this Kool-Aid. They are hurting the victims' families. I think that he has a trick gene or a screw loose.
Many of these 9/11 truthers, who I've been telling you for years, are dangerous. You know, it took me about a year to start hating the 9/11 victims' families. It took me about a year. And I had such compassion for them, and I really, you know, I wanted to help them, and I was behind, you know, let's give them money, let's get started, you know, all of this stuff. And I really didn't, you know, all the 3,000 victims' families, I don't hate all of them. I hate probably about 10 of them. But when I see, you know, 9/11 victim family, you know, on television or whatever, I'm just like, oh, shut up. I'm so sick of them because they're always complaining, and we did our best for them. And again, it's only about 10. There's about 10 of them that are spoiling it for everybody.
There are people out there that I think are dangerous that actually believe that 9/11 was an inside job and that George Bush was responsible for wiring it up and blowing up the World Trade Center. I think some of those people are nuts. I think some of them are dangerous.
In the personal story segment tonight, we were surprised to find out that an American who lost his father in the World Trade Center attack had signed an anti-war advertisement that accused the USA itself of terrorism.
Jeremy Glick is the son of a Port Authority worker who died at 9/11, and he had signed an anti-war petition, and O'Reilly had to have him on.
And they were so persistent about getting me on the O'Reilly show because they found out that I was on the advisory board and signed a statement that was against the war, and then I was directly impacted by 9/11. The success that I had on the O'Reilly show had to do with just practice and preparation. I taped the shows, and what I did is I took a stopwatch that I used to use for running sprints in high school, and I would see when he has a hostile guest, and I would time how long it takes for him to cut them off.
I was surprised, and the reason I was surprised is that this ad equates the United States with the terrorists.
I said, I'm shocked that you're surprised, and basically just made the only point I wanted to make.
Our current president now inherited a legacy from his father and inherited a political legacy that's responsible for training militarily, economically, and situating geopolitically the parties involved in the alleged assassination and murder of my father and countless of thousands of others. So I don't see why it's so surprising for you to think that I would come back and want to support.
It is surprising, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why it's surprising. You are mouthing a far-left position.
It was extremely intimidating sitting down in the studio because he's really tall. And like, dude, like he lords over you.
You see, I'm sure your beliefs are sincere, but what upsets me is I don't think your father would be approving of this.
Well, actually, my father thought that Bush's presidency was illegitimate.
Maybe he did, but I don't think he'd be
equating
equating this country as a terrorist nation.
Well, I wasn't saying that it was necessarily like that.
You
what I'm
signed this
saying
and it absolutely
is
said that.
Jeremy was pretty cool during it, and he was giving his political views, which were very to the left of O'Reilly's.
And he said, "Oh, I don't really care what you think politically." And I said, "Obviously you do care, because A, you brought me on the show, and B, I told him that he uses 9/11 and sympathy with the 9/11 families and the lives lost to rationalize his narrow right-wing agenda."
You evoke sympathy with the 9/11 families.
That's a bunch of crap.
So
I've done more for the 9/11 families, by their own admission. I've done more for them than you will ever hope to do.
Okay.
So you keep your mouth shut when you sit me exploiting those people.
You're
I
not
don't.
representing
And I never represent you. You know why?
Why?
Because you have a warped view of this world and a warped view of this country.
Well, explain that. Let me give you an example.
No, I'm not going to debate this with you.
Well, let me give you an example of parallel experiences.
No,
on September 14th.
Here's
September 14th.
Here's the record.
Okay.
All right. You didn't support the action against Afghanistan to remove the Taliban. You were against it.
Why would I want to brutalize and further punish the people in Afghanistan?
Who killed your father?
The people in Afghanistan didn't kill my father.
Sure they did. The Al-Qaeda people were trained there.
The Al-Qaeda people? What about the Afghanistan?
See, I'm more angry about it than you are.
So what about George Bush?
What about George Bush? He had nothing to do with it.
The director, senior, as director.
He had nothing to do with it.
So the people that trained 100,000 mujahideen who were extremists.
I hope your mom isn't watching this. I hope your mother is not watching this.
It's unfair for O'Reilly to evoke both my mom and my father in the interview, especially when I wasn't. You know, I mean, my mom is a grieving widow for a prematurely, a violent, horrific turn in their lives. My dad was only 55. They were working people, working class, middle class. Like, they were not retiring for a while. And their life is basically destroyed. Their life together is destroyed, and destroyed in circumstances that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemies, including Bill O'Reilly.
Because that's it. I'm not going to say any more.
Okay.
In respect for your father,
September 14th, do you want to know what I was doing?
Shut up.
Oh, please don't tell me to shut up.
In respect for your father, who was a Port Authority worker, a fine American, who got killed unnecessarily by barbarians.
By radical extremists trained by this government.
Respect
not
for
the
him.
People of America,
I'm not
the people, the ruling class, the small minority.
Cut his mic. I'm not going to dress you down anymore, out of respect for your father. We'll be back in a moment with more of the factor.
We're done?
We're done.
You see him gesturing to security guards, and then came the after-film performance.
After they're off the air, he said to the kid something to the effect, "Get out of my studio before I f***ing tear you to pieces." So Jeremy, and I've talked to him since, actually went to the green room to get a cup of coffee.
And the executive producer and the assistant encouraged me to leave the building because they were, quote, concerned that if O'Reilly ran into me in the hallway, he would end up in jail.
Comedians are used to getting heckled, but, that usually happens at a comedy club where the audience has already exceeded their 2-drink minimum. So when a comedian hosts his own big-time TV show and hears something coming from the audience other than applause, it can catch him a little off guard. That's what happened last Friday night during a taping of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher. It seems that some 9/11 truthers, as they like to call themselves, those who feel September 11th attacks were orchestrated by the U.S. government, were in the audience, and they started shouting things. Eventually, Maher had enough.
Take that money from Iraq, put it here, and begin to fight that disease so people can live.
See, this is part of the Democrats.
I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah. Like boy, sometimes here at CBS, I wish the sound wasn't working.
Jersey is going.
I didn't even know what that asshole was saying. But see, this is the problem sometimes with government. Hey, do we have some fucking security in this building? Or do I have to come over and kick this guy out of here? Could you get the fuck out of my building? Hey, ouch, Jesus.
They
Aunt Jerry for you, though?
You know,
is it that hard to throw somebody out of a building? I'll kick your ass out of here, too. Get her the fuck out.
What is going on here? What's the issue?
Hey, this isn't the Iowa caucus, okay? It's not a debate. It's a debate between us. You're in the audience. Audience comes from the Latin, to listen. What's going on here?
Bill, I was only allowed 2 guests, so things should be okay after that.
No, it's great. Yeah.
Anyway.
You have good friends.
That one's not mine.
Oh. Yeah, this is the problem with live television. I guess it gets around that if you're on live, then the nutcases, yeah, and you are a nutcase, Building 7. Yeah, you know what that's all about? Of all the things I've said, and believe me, I've said a lot of things, as you all know, that could get my head on a block. Crazy people who still think the government brought down the Twin Towers in a controlled explosion have to stop pretending that I'm the one who's being naive. How big a lunatic do you have to be to watch 2 giant airliners packed with jet fuel slam into buildings on live TV, igniting a massive inferno that burned for 2 hours, and then think, well, if you believe that was the cause? Stop asking me to raise this ridiculous topic on the show and start asking your doctor if Paxil is right for you. The one that they protest about out here is the people who think that the World Trade Center was a controlled explosion. You see, in that instance, I'm actually defending President Bush. I don't think President Bush brought down the World Trade Center. And cows disagree with me.
This is better than when I was on Springer.
This is Anyway, I have some good news to report. One of our generals this week said that we have now eliminated Al-Qaeda in Iraq, who, by the way, goes by the name now AQI. I love it.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's great. It's like KFC, you know? AQI. We don't make the bombs that kill the troops. We make the hate that makes the bombs.
Oh, Jesus.
How come I don't fire my audience department is really the question that's running through my mind right. Yeah, don't be gentle with them. Ass kicking is what's called for.
I agree with Bill Maher on this one. Anybody who thinks that 9/11 was carried out by the government isn't a truther. They're idiots. Can you actually imagine that our government was capable of successfully pulling off 9/11 and then keeping it off of the front page of the New York Times? No. But 12% of Americans are just dumb enough to believe that that's exactly what happened with the U.S. government taking down the World Trade Center, at least number 7. Actually, more Americans think that than think that Congress is doing a good job. I'm not kidding. These truthers are exactly the kind of people who want to rock this nation's foundation, tear us apart, and plant the seeds of dissatisfaction in all of us.
I wanted to ask you, George, I'm really curious to find out what you think about this whole 9/11 conspiracy truth movement thing that's going on across the nation. They interrupted Bill Maher's show last Friday.
Yeah.
What are your personal thoughts on that? Would you care to comment on that?
I always question the received reality. The consensus reality is often intentionally misleading.
Would you support a new investigation on 9/11?
You know, that's like, you know, that they don't investigate themselves in this country. Those people, there would be a wipe. It would be like the Kennedy thing. It would be like everything.
Okay.
The people who are in charge do what they want, and they will always do what they want. The power does what it wants to. And I wouldn't trust an investigation. It's just fun. It's good speculation.
Just flown into New York, and we're trying to get down to meet up with our people. We just heard on the cell phone they're being harassed by the police right now. It may already be too late. We'll see what happens when we get there.